This week I got the new BlakLine parting tools from BlakLine. It's their test blades. It's not in production yet. They want to know from myself and probably some other people what they think about those blades. That's the old parting tool that I'm using for the last 2 years. It works amazing. You can see it on all my videos how I work with it. It comes with its own handle, or actually not. That's a handle I put myself because I didn't have the mini set. Now the new one, they're coming in 2 sizes, maybe 3. That's for the midi, must be one for the maxi, and then for the mini. The mini sits in the mini handle, and the midi sits in the midi handles. In first glance, what do I notice? I noticed that they are very, very long. Okay? I think that this size is perfect. This one is a bit long. Quite long. That's one of the things that I saw first of all, as I got it in and I opened the package. Number 2, that the midi one, on the width, it's identical to the wood of the old one, and the insert is 4 millimeters when the width was 3 millimeters. That gives you 1 millimeter on half a millimeter on outside. The new one is also, like I said, it's 3 millimeters, but the insert, the carbide insert, is only 3,5. It means that it's got only 0.25 on each side, and it worries me a little bit on some type of the wood that it will not, in a deep cut, it will not grab the parting tool. On small cuts, on shallow cuts, it won't be a problem, but on deep cuts, I'm afraid that it will. The midi one, the thickness is exactly the same thing, and the carbide, it's exactly the same thing also, 25 on each side. However, the width of it, that's 20, when the width of this one was only 18, actually 17,8. So this one will give a little bit of more of stiffness and hardness. I still think it's too long, but that's my thinking. So let me put it to the paste and see how it works, and I'll come back to you after I've done some tests. So my first test is wild olive. I think it's about 200 years old, this wood, and resin, and the combination of hardwood and soft resin usually problematic to parting tools. So I'm starting with it, and I'm cutting a very thin, I'm trying to cut a very, very, very thin slice to see if there is a vibration and if the slice will break off from the wood. And if it does, I know that I've got a vibration in the end of the parting tool. And it doesn't cut it nicely, it just breaks the wood in the end. So let's see. And oh, it came out beautiful. Look at the knob at the end. It's almost no knobs at all. Smooth, very thin. I'll show you now how thin it is. Very, very, very thin, and it didn't break off. So I'm quite happy with that. The next piece of wood is a paduk. You know, there is a piece missing over there. Why I'm showing you the piece is that it's going to be held only on 3 legs. Now, if in case that it will catch, it will fly out. Of course, I've got my safety facialed on, and I'll be very careful. And also here I'm going to use a very thin slice and see in the end how bad it is. Remember, that's a very, very soft wood, so that should start breaking in this place, but it's not. Nice knob in the end, and the thickness is less than 2 millimeters. Didn't break whatsoever. And this one I cut down with mini, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the midi, with the bigger one, and see what happens. And it start cutting exactly the same thing, soft like butter. This one also less than 2 milli. I'm happy. Now what I'm doing is I'm cutting in an angle, almost 45 degrees angle, and I'm doing like a cup or a cone, and I want to see how it is. The reason why I like to sometimes I like to cut in an angle, and that's when I'm parting the bottom of a vase or something. So I create a hollow in, so it will sit nicely on the table later. So it will be also easier to clean it in the bottom, and I'll have space for my logo. So that's why I'm doing it in an angle. Just a test. Not every parting tool can do that. Now this one is a African black wood, and the reason I had bad experience with it before, so this one I usually keep it with the safety of the tailstock. I had these pieces flying on me before. One of them knocked me off my feet one day, and this one came out very nice, but it catches in the end. It was hooking in the end, and it left a mark on the parting tool. You can see the mark now. And I think the main reason is because I'm using the tailstock and it's putting a little bit of pressure on the wood. But I don't know. The same thing on this one, but less. And it also cuts it very, very nice. I'm playing with it a little bit, so I'm cleaning up the corners till I'm getting a cylinder, and then I'll cut it and see how it works. No problem whatsoever. The same thing, a little bit of a catch in the end, and I'm not so sure why is it. Now for the next one I'm using a little bit of resin, and it's a leftover resin that I put in a cup, and I put a piece of pine inside, and I'm doing it with pine, and the pine is not a match for this parting tool. And pine, it's a walk in the park. Now actually walk in the park is a little bit more difficult. Now what I do is that's leftovers that I do from projects, and I put them in a cup, and then later I cut them in cylinders and I use them for my artwork. I use them usually for pendants, or I add them to pendants, or I break them and I add it to a project. Cuts it very easy, very soft, doesn't get warm, doesn't get hot, doesn't burn the resin. Because a parting tool, when it's not sharp enough or it doesn't cut good enough, and you turn it in the speed, sometimes it burns the resin. By the way, the speed is 800. I didn't want to go higher speed than that, but that's more than enough. It cuts with this one. Look, boom, comes off. Now the next test is on nylon. It's a rod of nylon. I'm using this rod of nylon for my jigs, and I usually get stuck inside, not with the BlakLine, with a normal parting tool. And this one is exactly the same like the old one. It cuts it through butter, and I'm quite happy. I will do some more tests on that, and on the thicker one, on a thinner one. But I think that you got the point, that I'm quite happy and quite impressed with that, and I really hope that they'll continue. Alright, so what you saw here on this video was about 20% of the test that I made on those tools. I made longer test on the same thing, longer, cut some more, tried to do it directly, wiggling, without wiggling. And you saw what I found on most of the video. I'm very impressed. I stick to my idea, the first idea, that's too long. You don't need so long parting tool. You're not going to part, what's that, about 10 inch. So you're not going to part about 10 inch wood. So way too long. I would go even shorter than that. But, you know, that's my opinion. What I was very impressed was this. In both of the blades. It's wild olive. I reckon it's 200-year-old. And resin, so there is hard to soft play. And it did cut it like butter. Look at the thickness of the ring. It's such a big ring. Look at it. And it did not vibrate it, so you'll see in the end, it didn't break it. It just small knob. The other one was very, very impressed. Was funny enough was the nylon. Usually with nylon, when I cut, I use this nylon for jigs that I make for pendants. And I use the nylon because it's hard and it's flexible. And it's usually when I cut it, when I part it, my parting tool gets jammed. Not the BlakLine one. From the time that I use the BlakLine, I don't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with it. So maybe the thickness of the blade, the insert, it's wide enough. In my opinion, maybe not. The work with the paduk, the softer wood, because I had to work with few type of wood. The softer wood was a breeze. I mean, it was such a breeze, such an easy cut, really, really. The resin the same. I managed to cut those discs quite easy, and they're not thick. One thick, one thin. What else? The black African wood was the only one that gave me a little bit of a hiccup, and it's a very thin one, and it grabbed. And I think the reason why it grabbed is because I had the tailstock tied to it very tight, so when it started wobbling, in the end, it grabbed the side because it could not wobble freely. So maybe that's, I'll do some more tests with that. But it cut it very easy, very nice. And the pine tree, what can I tell you? The pine tree was an embarrassment to this, for this tool even to use it. You know, I went and you saw me, and I wham to the end of it, and that was the end of the story. It didn't even feel the wood, even that it had resin inside. So in a whole, how do I summarize everything? Is I like it very much. I hope that this prototype will come into production and will come back again into the market. I think it's one of their amazing tools. And the other thing is, it's too long, and think about maybe just making the insert a little bit wider. And maybe another one, just an idea, a very thin one for pen making. But this 2mm one is more than enough, I think. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on my next video. Cheers, bye.